Okay guys, we've got the transformer wired up with what we think is the primary to a temporary power cord. This is actually the cord we're going to use for the cabinet. So I went ahead and cut the end off of it. As you can see here, and we'll cut that off, and of course you're left with a neutral, the white wire, your hot, which has, you know, your supply of voltage there, is your black wire. It's kind of hard to see. It is actually a black wire, but the insulation around all three of them is black also. And then you've got a ground, which is green. And so up here, we left the ground loose. We didn't connect it, and we just connected the hot to the one of the black in the pair to the transformer. There was one pair of black and a pair of red that we're going to test the voltage on. And then we've got our neutral wire coming from the cord hooked to the other black in the pair that we think is the primary. And we're going to test the voltages on this. So I went ahead and I connected them, and you do have, these wires are stranded. That's just the way all these cords are. So I've got stranded wires, the white and the black, coming out of the cord. It's kind of hard for you to see there, but they're connected with wire nuts to the two black, which we think's going to the primary coil of the transformer. And I connected them with wire nuts, and I just went ahead and gave them some extra security and gave them a little bit of electrical tape just to be extra safe on there and give it a little support, since we are slightly pulling on the wire just to plug it in. And there is a fuse, piece of dust on there. There is a fuse or breaker on that right there, so that should protect us if we do anything wrong. If not, the breaker downstairs will kick off, and so I'll lose some of my items up here. So we're going to go ahead and be brave. Plugged it in. We're not dead. So right now, do not touch those. Nobody's up tonight. It's just me. So you touch those, you're probably going to get hit with 120. So we're going to take our trusty fluke here, set it to AC voltage, get our probes here, and see right now. Well, let me set all this up where you can see it. Let's see if I can carefully put this in view of what we're going to test. Let's see, without shocking myself and screaming loudly on a YouTube video. Okay, I think you can see that. So let's see if I can do this. I want to try to do it one-handed because I'm holding the phone, and we've got the wires separated enough to where they're not going to touch. So let's see right now. We're going to go on this side of this and this side of this. Oops, it's hard to do all this with a hand on each thing. I can't get them both at the same time. Well, that doesn't look good. 6 point. I must not be getting a good connection. Oh, there we go. 131. That's pretty close to what Arcade Buffet said you'd probably see with no load. So that's pretty good. 131.4 volts AC. And so we can take a snapshot from this video. And, you know, just because AC is the same either way, I'll just reverse the probes and just show you guys. It should be exactly the same the other way. AC switching direction 60 times a second. What's hurting me is I just can't get a good connection to these with one hand. But you can see what our meter's trying to read up there. If I could keep, I don't want to get these too much closer together. You see it's 131 point something. So okay, I believe our transformer's working good, but just to make sure, we're going to reverse these and put the neutral and the ground, the neutral and the hot on the red wires, and then we're going to read what's on the black wires. So I'll be back in a second. All right, we've connected to what most likely is the secondary. And you can see we have the same type of connections going on. I did change the wire nuts I had because I do believe the other ones was a little larger than they needed to be. Every wire nut, it comes in a package, and on the back, if you look, they'll suggest the amount of wires and the gauge sizes that can be used. like the maximum amount of wires that you can put one of those wire nuts on and have it work properly, but there's probably also kind of a minimum to that. You don't want to sometimes only hook 2 wires together if you've got too big of a wire nut. And I felt like I probably needed either slightly larger gauge with those yellow ones I just had on, or a few more wires in there. They just felt a little loose, so I just wanted to be a little safer, and I just stuck some smaller ones on there. This is generally what you see that comes with like a lighting kit or something, and they're only made for a couple of conductors, so they fit a little tighter. But we have our, you can see the colors there. We have our neutral and our line voltage, the white and the black, connected to one each of the pair of red wires, which is probably the secondary. And I put a little extra piece of tape there just to give some strain relief, because this is a pretty heavy cord going down. And then we have our 2, what is going to, you know, I think be the line connection. And we're just going to see what comes off of that when we run these, when we run 120 volts back through what I think is a secondary. Transformers usually can work in both ways. So if it's a 1-to-1 ratio, we should get a very similar voltage. I think Arcade Buffet said it would probably be between 10 and 15% if there's any difference. So that could be a little higher or a little lower. So we might see something closer to 120, or it might be closer to 140, or I think he said the max was 150 volts. And, you know, he just commented not to freak out because that was normal. And I do know how transformers work, and haven't told you guys all the story, but while I've been away, I went and got a 2-year degree in industrial electronics technology, so I studied a lot of this, and, you know, most of it stuck, but there's always things that you can refresh yourself on, and he's got a lot more experience with transformers and monitors than I do, so I really wanted to defer to someone who has messed with this more than I have. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and plug this in. And hopefully, like I say, if this isn't secondary, nothing bad will happen. Sorry. And that pop was just me trying to plug that into the plastic. That was nothing bad. And so right now these 2 wires are live, and we want to be extra careful here. We'll just kind of move our metal tools back a little ways. And so right now we're going to turn our meter back on, very first selection, and it is voltage AC. Oh no, there's 0.09 volts AC in my house just floating around. Get my probes here. See if we can get all this in the frame again one-handed. It's not easy to do, guys, but I do want you guys to see all this, so let me back up a little bit. And if I've got you out of frame, I'll correct it in a second. Let me just be careful with these wires here. Looks like we're getting 116 volts AC. So that's at 10 to 15% he was talking about difference. So I still think that's kind of more of a 1-to-1 ratio. So this is definitely an isolation transformer. I knew it was because it came out of the main cabinet and was connected directly to the monitor. It is hard to keep these things close together, but you've got to be careful with these probes. If you short these out, yeah, you're going to at least trip your breaker. Okay, about 116, we'll say. All right, guys. So it's functioning. I want to get that data to Arcade Buffet and just see what he thinks about it, you know, because, you know, I think he said maybe send the higher voltage to the monitor. So yeah, we wouldn't want to run it this way, which is basically in reverse. We would want to connect our line voltage from the wall to the black leads here. Ooh, don't put my finger too close. Ah. Anyway, and that will give us an output of around 130, and then you get a load on it, and it'll probably be, you know, closer to 120 volts or so. What I'd really like to do is to remove that from the cabinet and see if I could get that paint off and restore that switch to functionality, because there's still a 5-amp fuse in that holder, and I believe the switch is still good. It's just somebody cut the wiring on the inside, cut everything loose, the fuse, everything, and they just cut it loose. And if you look behind this panel, I'm not really familiar with these, but I'm only guessing. I think that's where the wiring, let's see. Oh, that's for the switch. Let's see. Okay, the wiring came up, I guess, from the original power cord after it probably came into the cabinet. The wiring went into there and went through a fuse, and then that's a switch, and it looks like it's got some type of coil. That might be some type of built-in filter. Is that a capacitor? I can't quite see. It's all okay. It had gunk and everything in there sealing it up. You can see where the wires were chopped off. But we're going to do a little research on that. We're going to pull it from the cabinet right now, clean it up, and that might be a project for another day, but we're going to get it out of here so we can clean it up and try to get that black paint off. But we're working on that stuff. A few other things. You see I got a under the cabinet puck light here, just giving me a little extra lighting in here because the way the cabinet is, I can't get much light in here without an artificial light source. But we're going to work on some of that, and we're also, let's see, if you looked at the last clip, you seen where we were testing this isolation transformer. We're going to try to get us some wires to connect to those, and hopefully we will get that wired into here and use the line filter that's already in there and the fuses. Well, we may not use that fuse if we can restore this, but like I said, that's for another day. So we might get this going now and restore the original power switch, because there's actually no switch on this cabinet. You would turn it on and off by plugging the cabinet in. And we're going to jerk this old AC wire out of here that had the skint place. And we're going to eventually repair it and replace it with that new cord there. So, okay guys, I got this out of the cabinet. And as you can see, this is the fuse holder and the main cabinet power switch. You can see the back of it a lot easier now. We got a lot of gunk around where that switch is, so I kind of owned it out just to see if like it was any problem with the switch, and it's a bit hard to tell. Everything seems normal with it. I think the switch is good. It has a built-in filter there, so you've got like a choke and a capacitor there, and I have no idea if they're good. They're all gunked up on there. It does look like they're soldered across where the original power wires, probably the neutral and line, came in. And generally you see that for filtering, you know, like high frequency, like filtering. And that's probably why it has 6 terminals, because I thought it was just switching, I guess it's switching the neutral and the hot. And the way I owned it out, it seems like these two are always connected. And then when you flip the power on, it connects this pin on this side, and the same way on the other side. Yeah, that stuff's like rubber caulk or something. But yeah, these two are generally always connected, and then when you flip the switch, you connect in right here and complete this. So I'm thinking one side is probably interrupting the hot line and the other is the neutral. And then you have a couple of ground connections there, and your 2 wires that have been chopped off for the fuse. So let's see which side's on. Let's see, this is upside down, so it's kind of a shame, but I'm going to get most of this paint off because that actually looks pretty neat and original. I think all the paint will come off, but I'm afraid these little stickers, they'll probably get damaged in the process. This, where it says, it's hard for you to see, but where it says on, that's on a little bit of a metal plate there. So if I can get all this off, I believe I can salvage that. And the fuse holder, it was already black, but it got painted over, so I can probably salvage that too. And it's got a good 5-amp fuse in it. And I think all that will come off. Like I said, most likely these stickers are probably going to end up getting damaged